Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how you doing this week?
Doing pretty good. Excited to hop into the topics and enjoy some good Xbox discussion. How about you, man?
I'm good. As people may know, I've been sick for months, and I'm sick again. Never-ending cycle. But all that stuff aside, I've been mentioning this the past few weeks anyway, so I'll mention it again. Wrestling is popping off. I haven't watched the thing in 20 years, and it's so bloody entertaining at the minute, to the point where I'm actually putting it on without realizing it, actually enjoying it. So if people have been away from wrestling, like me, for like years, maybe get back into it. If you subscribe to Netflix, especially if you live outside of the US, it's all on Netflix basically. So entertaining. Anyway, that's wrestling out the way. Logan, it's been a long week. What have you been playing?
Well, basically, I've just been no-lifing Avowed and the Wallace and Gromit expansion for Power Wash Sim. Those have been my two mainstays this week. Just keeping it pretty simple. I'm towards the end of Avowed. I've gone back and done some quests and discoveries I missed. I'm towards the end of Galloway's Tusk, which is like basically the fourth major region, and then there's like another hub, kind of mini hub region, and then you have to go back for some stuff. So that's basically where I'm at. It's essentially a Mordor at home, but it's a really cool place they designed, and I'm enjoying it. And the Wallace and Gromit expansion is hilarious. Like all the messages you get in the game is, like spoken just like the characters, and the machines and the cars and the vehicles and the decor. It's all just wonderfully retro futuristic Britain 50s, and I love it. So how about you, man? What have you been up to?
Before what I've been getting, before I get into what I've been playing, I need to mention this because the time zones, everything all being different all of a sudden. So it's daylight savings time in the US. Because I needed to find this out, so I asked Logan last night. So it changes for us in the UK and a lot of other countries at the end of the month. So if you're outside of the US, this show may be a bit early. That's crystal clear at this point. But if you're from the US, the show's at the same time, basically. But yeah, really confusing when you do podcasting and content that 90% of your audience is from the US. So like trying to time everything, and I constantly look at the world clock on my iPhone. It's like, oh yeah, they are an hour forward. Very confusing. Um, but with all that stuff aside, I've been playing a bunch of stuff. Avowed. With me being sick, I'm only able to play games a little bit at a time. So like Avowed, I'm really enjoying the combat. I think the combat is probably the strongest aspect of the game, and to be able to say that for an RPG is very refreshing. You know, I feel like when it comes to The Witcher 3, I felt that the combat was good, but that game was just about exploration. It was just pure fun exploring the multiple maps in that game. And Skyrim, I thought exploring and the side quests in that game were fantastic. But with Avowed, the combat, like you look forward to going into combat, and just the different types of like weapons and spells you can use, and the fact that spells interact with like certain like objects in the environment. So if you use an electric spell while someone's standing in water, that'll shock them. It's really cool stuff, and I just think it's the fact that you can use the ice shield and then walk on water, like just small things like that. It's super fun, and I can't wait to get back towards that. I've also been playing a little bit of Death Stranding. We're obviously going to be talking about that in a bit. Again, that game makes no sense, but I know Logan's played it. Like the game doesn't make sense, but it's so good. It's so good. Um, I think
It's the art house film game
yeah,
that you never knew you wanted, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's basically the freaky A24 film, but in video
Yes,
game form.
100%.
Yeah. Speaking of A24, they are actually making the Death Stranding movie. So
Yep. Perfect collaboration. I couldn't have thought of anybody better.
yeah, best studio for it. So that's Death Stranding, and I have to say thank you to everyone that builds those roads. You know,
Yeah, God bless him.
like
Those people are great.
yeah, like I've mentioned this before. The second I see a crafting screen in a video game, my heart sinks, man. Like I don't want to
Same.
craft. I don't want to craft in games like Minecraft. Pretty simple. You know, you want a sword, one piece of wood, two pieces of steel. Pretty simple, right? Everyone can do that stuff. But in any other game, crafting, my mind kind of just melts. I don't like it. So like the fact that I can just fire up Death Stranding some days, and I did actually do this on purpose to where I bought the game day one when it came out to Xbox, but I specifically waited a few days before like exploring the wilds because I wanted people to build roads. So it's like, you know, hey, that
Smart man.
they could do all the work for me. Like I can't imagine what it was like for these people. And the thing is, there's a lot of people that do like crafting content. So like for them, Death Stranding must have been amazing. But for me, I'm not building roads. I'm not getting materials. Like, but hey, they did all that stuff. Like I thought it was funny that when Death Stranding first came out, you know, it lets you choose in the options whether you want online connectivity. And I was like, you know what? I'll have that turned on. And there's a particular river near the beginning of the game where I thought, you know what? I'm going to put a ladder down for people to use. You know, I'll get some likes because that's how it works in that game. You get likes, which, you know, it's kind of like a mini weird alternate life version of Twitter, kind of. So anyway, the next day I fire up Death Stranding, and there's my bridge. It's still there. It's got 100 likes, but someone built a bloody bridge right next to my ladder. It's like, okay, I get the point, right? You know, small fish in a big pond. But really cool multiplayer mechanic. I'm surprised. I hope we see multiplayer stuff like that in the future from other games. But yeah, that's Death Stranding. I've also been playing, and you know, people might laugh at this. Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, the game that never ends. I've spent an untold amount of hours in that game just doing side content. It's just fun to go and explore in that game. And I'm that dude. I love the two Avatar movies. I will defend those. I will die on that hill. And this video game, it puts a smile on my face. We're getting a new Avatar movie this year. It's going to be great. And I haven't even touched the expansions in like the second half of the main story. So I'm probably going to be playing that till like next year. Really cool stuff. Now, I have been playing something else. And that is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Now, I've said this time and time again. I've posted about it on Twitter about 40 million times. I do not play multiplayer often. You know, I was big into multiplayer back in the day, back in the, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Black Ops 2 days. And, like, I was a monster. I was, like, borderline, could have went pro if I actually tried. I did a few tournaments, right? And it got to a point where Modern Warfare 3 came out, and me and my friends would play these Call of Duty games every single night. Doesn't matter what had happened, every single night we would get on, we would all play these, you know, multiplayer games. Call of Duty. And Modern Warfare 3 came out in 2011, and I swear to God, almost every single one of us had the exact same opinion. The game didn't feel as good as Modern Warfare 2. It didn't look as good as Modern Warfare 2. Just like the maps were terrible. The co-op mode wasn't as fun. So like we were all put off, right? And I was looking for something like new, really good multiplayer. And my friend recommended me to download the demo, or I should say the multiplayer beta for Battlefield 3 Operation Metro. And that's when I turned into a Battlefield fan. I was like, this is mind-blowing. Like, a 360 can do this. And I basically played that till Battlefield 4 came out. Battlefield 4 was broken at launch. And then I was addicted to Titanfall. But I basically went over 10 years without playing Call of Duty multiplayer. So for the past year and a few months, I've been slowly trying to get my Call of Duty legs back. Let's just say it's now 2025, and they still aren't back. My God, the Call of Duty's pacing has changed so much that it's probably going to take me a year or two to get those legs back to any degree, right? Like, absolutely. Like, I used to be so obsessed with Call of Duty KD ratio back in the day that I had to have it close to 2. Let me tell you, it's nowhere near 2. I'm getting absolutely owned. And it also doesn't help that I'm playing against PC players a lot of the time. So anyway, me and a friend who play basically every week, we decided to play Warzone Resurgence last year. And let me tell you, as someone that does not like Warzone that much, Warzone Resurgence is such an addictive video game mode. In my opinion, it might be one of the best multiplayer modes of the past decade. For people who haven't played it, get into a squad of 2 to 4, you have a bunch of fun, right? So ever since Black Ops 4 came out, they changed the movement system. And everyone loves the movement system in Black Ops 6. And I love the movement system. And then they put the movement system in Black Ops. Everyone's fine, right? So fast forward a little bit, they put all the Black Ops weapons inside Warzone Resurgence. So now this is where I basically whine every single time I play a Call of Duty now, because we cannot get a win, right? Learning different weapons for those maps, and the new items are terrible for those maps. So basically, we've whined non-stop every time we play. I'm just sitting there gritting my teeth, wanting this to end, right? I literally just want a plane or a train just to bash through my house and end me, because I'm so annoyed. So anyway, we got our first win, literally last night, playing Warzone Resurgence with the Black Ops content. And I'm going to put this out there to, if anyone from Activision ever listens to this, change the weapons back to Modern Warfare weapons. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 had such this massive wave of hype when it came out. People loved it. And ever since, Call of Duty, Warzone specifically, has gone down in popularity. And I 100% believe it's because of the Black Ops weapons. It doesn't work for Warzone. Doesn't work for Warzone Resurgence. Multiplayer, perfectly fine. Multiplayer for Black Ops 6 is so much fun. But yeah, I want to get that out there because I've been whining non-stop offline to my friend about this every time we play. I'm just... And bear in mind, this is a PG show. I don't swear. You'd be shocked at how much I swear when I play Call of Duty. A lot.
You grew up in the 360 live chat. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that 360 chat back in the day. Oof, that was unique. And the thing is, people talk about Call of Duty chat back in the day. Let me tell you, GTA 4 chat back in the day. People make memes about Call of Duty chat in 2010. No, GTA 4 had the most disgusting, degenerate chat you've ever heard. I can't even say a percent of what people were going on about saying on there. People were getting into arguments, and because in that game there was literally a free mode where all you did was just go around and end other players. There was no point system. There was no XP in it. You were just playing to play. There's no microtransactions. You couldn't buy properties. There was weapons scattered around the map, which you had to pick up. It was fairly simple. So I think people filled the content themselves with just hateful arguments. I got into so many arguments playing GTA 4 back in the day. I used to. This is before Twitter, by the way. Before I was on Twitter a lot. I blocked maybe hundreds of people playing that game. Don't message me anymore because it got heated. It's not anywhere like that now, but let's just say the swearing comes out when I play a Black Ops. My God. I might record it at some point and just post it on Twitter because, I'm not going to get demonetized there. But that's all the gaming I've been doing. It's been a good week. And, if people enjoying the show, like I said, the time zone thing, it's different everywhere. The clocks go forward for us later in the month. So if you're enjoying the show, please share it. It helps the channel out, all that stuff. Now, it's been an interesting week for news, and we got this news story, I want to say a couple of hours ago. And so Split Fiction by Hazelight Studios, possibly one of, I'm going to put it out there, one of the best developers. They've consistently made unique co-op games for, what, 15 years? Maybe 12?
Since late 360,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was it a Brothers Tale of Two Sons?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then A Way Out.
Yeah, and then A Way Out. And, like, absolutely fantastic games. Nobody makes co-op games like them. Well, it turns out it sold over 1 million copies in 48 hours. Now, for a game that EA could have forced them to do this, pay for 2 copies to play it, because, like, you can buy one game and literally play it with other people and they don't have to own it. The friend pass is such a poor consumer move that, like, you've just got to celebrate them. Like, Joseph Fares, the creative director, like, protect him at all costs. Like, he is possibly one of the best people in the business. Like, screw all the microtransactions, commercial crap. Like, he's not having any of it. Like, his objective is make a cool, unique game, sell it, that's it, done. And it's shown. Like, you make a good game, you show people how good it is, and it will sell. And currently, it's number 1 in the UK on the Xbox Store, and I believe it's also number 1 in the US on the Xbox Store. And I think it's the same on PlayStation and definitely on PC. But across the board, huge success. And I should be playing it by the end of the week, and I'll talk about it in the next show. But my God, like, that studio, they just keep getting better and better and better. And if people haven't played their games, like, A Way Out as a Prison Break fan, amazing, right? Chef's kiss, fantastic. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. I think you can still buy the 360 version, which is backwards compatible, and I think there was an Xbox One version, and then there was the remake last year. But yeah, people have to play their games, and the cool thing about their games is that, like, you see their perspective on your TV, so you can play couch co-op if you want, or you can play, online, and you get the exact same co-op experience if they're in the same room with you, which I think that's a really unique thing, and I don't really think anyone else is doing that. Like, Logan, have you gotten to play that yet?
I haven't yet, but it's for sure on my list. I love their games. Like, I mean it with the utmost respect. Fairies is a mad lad. He's he's awesome. He has done a fantastic job creating this game and this series. And yes, it is for sure gonna be one I pick up.
Yeah, I mean, they make such unique games, and I make a habit of complaining a lot about how the AAA gaming space has no risk, how we see the same thing over and over again, but, like, they are sticking to co-op games, but they bloody know how to make co-op games. Like, I always forget the name of their last game, even though I've got footage in this podcast. Like, what was their last game called?
It Takes Two.
Yeah, It Takes Two, where you play it as a almost divorced couple, and it just works.
It's Pixar the game. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, it's basically Pixar the game, and I highly recommend it. I think a few of their games are in Game Pass Ultimate if you have it, EA Play, all that stuff. But man, I love seeing such a small studio, like, they go away for a few years. Like, they announced this game at the Game Awards, and it just came out in March. So, like, that's one of the best studios in the business. I hope they continue to make games like this, and it looks like they will. And, like, EA, they'll probably give them more funding next time, because this is part of their EA Originals, I believe. But yeah, there's no stopping that studio. Excellent stuff. Next up, we have, now, Logan, you mentioned this, and I saw it the other day, but I didn't 100% get the announcement. So Mimic, the video game, has been approved for Xbox.
Yes, it's a multiplayer horror game that's been popping off on Steam and other stuff, and it's gotten a lot of buzz and popularity, and it especially with streamers and stuff. And the developer just recently announced that he just got the dev kits for PS5 and Xbox. So he is working on it, and it will be coming to consoles. So I thought that's good news that a pop culture kind of viral moment phenomenon game is coming to consoles as well and isn't just staying on Steam.
Oh, good, good. I mean, I think we could take more games like that on, consoles anyway. Uh, I'll answer this in chat because I think this was worth mentioning when it comes to the co-op stuff. Uh, I believe Kane and Lynch was a co-op game, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was. I
Yeah,
know there were two of them.
yeah, and then in the sequel they did that awful. The camera perspective was, it was also third person, but
Oh gosh.
it was doing the whole handheld camera movement that you saw in Cloverfield.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, that game gave more people motion sickness, like because the camera did that jittery thing. It was awful. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Mimic. So another game coming to Xbox. Love to see it. You know what? We could talk about this because this is going to be a long one. Um, so like I'm a huge fan of Capcom. I think that they've came so far over the past few years because if you go back a decade ago, like they were very close to going belly up. Like as a publisher, like they had no big new releases coming. They just put out bare bones ports and collections, and they didn't really have a massive hit. And then they put out Monster Hunter World, and that game popped off huge. Then they had Resident Evil 7, huge. Resident Evil 2 remake, huge. And they've had like consistent huge releases for years. Devil May Cry 5, huge. And they have that amazing RE engine where great performance, even better visuals. And in the background, there's been a lot of us online, dozens, if you will, uh, been port begging like mad for a Dino Crisis remake or a collection. And it just seems like, at some point, Capcom, they have to run out of Resident Evil games. They can't only lean on Resident Evil when it comes to horror. And they have Dino Crisis right there. They own the IP. They just have to make a Resident Evil game, but with dinosaurs. It's literally that simple. And we've heard nothing about Dino Crisis literally since Dino Crisis 3 came out on the original Xbox, right? So it's been a while. In the past few months, the Dino Crisis games got listed on GOG, and then the original PlayStation versions were put onto PS Network, and that was it. Well, it turns out there's been a recent trademark filing in Japan for Dino Crisis. Now, obviously, they could be doing this just so they could keep the name and all that stuff, the trademark, if you will. But look, maybe this is copium or hopium. We'll go with hopium this time because this screams Dino Crisis like collection to me or remake. I'll take either. We've had so many successful remasters over the past few years. Like, why not put out a remaster collection? They'll easily make money off it, but like I said before, they can't continuously pump out Resident Evil games on a bi-yearly basis. Mixing in Dino Crisis would be the best thing to do for them, and honestly, the best thing for me, because I want Dino Crisis. But it looks like something can be happening. Like, Logan, I know you've been port begging for Dino Crisis pretty much as long as me. Like, something has to be happening, right?
Yeah, and if you follow Jaw Muncher and others who are, heavily involved or infatuated with the Dino Crisis brand and Capcom and Japanese culture and stuff, like they've been saying as well that Japanese trademarking their that entity over there operates differently than in the United States and some other places, to where you generally, like, if you're trademarking something, it's most likely for a purpose, not simply just keeping name rights and stuff like that. So at the very least, it seems like something is happening, which is awesome. Because, at the end of the day, it happens over here all the time. Somebody trademarks something, everybody gets excited, and it's just like, oh, we trademarked Brutal Legend again just to keep the rights.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's not a sequel, and everybody boos, and then they go back on with their day. But it seems like there is something happening. The GOG thing popped off really well. It led to the whole dream list, wish list for people on GOG to put titles that they want to see on the site and preserved. And then, PlayStation Plus put them in the service. And I discovered that I had bought the Vita versions like years ago of Dino Crisis 1 and 2.
Nice.
And lo and behold, they were free to download and play, and I owned them on my PS5 because I had bought them back in the day. So, you can play them on your PS5 if you have them or have purchased them. And I don't think they're very much. But even if it was just a port to Xbox, I'd be thrilled. But I think a remaster, a remake, whatever they want to do, I feel that something is truly happening this time. I don't think it's smoke and mirrors. I think we are getting something Dino Crisis in some capacity. Watch it be some obscure Saturday morning anime or something, but it'll be something.
Or watch it be a Netflix anime.
Yes.
The thing is, I'll end up watching it.
Yeah, same. I mean, dinosaurs? Heck yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, for people that have been listening to me for a long time on here, I get so salty whenever I talk about Splinter Cell. And when they announced the anime last year, I was grinding my teeth, right? And as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, damn you, Netflix, I'm going to watch this.
It ain't so bad.
Yeah, that'll do for now. But hey, I mean, at least there's some movement with Dino Crisis because that IP's just been sitting there. And it's kind of funny looking back because you have those two horror games in the mid to late 90s, which were basically Resident Evil clones made by the Resident Evil developers. So, everyone was cool with it. And then in the early 2000s, you get Dino Crisis 3, which was a sci-fi third-person shooter.
It completely off the rails. What is this? It's still cool, but
Yeah,
not Dino Crisis.
it's like you had like Tyrannosaurus Rexes on these like massive space stations. Didn't make any sense. Although I quite like the aesthetic of that game. It's kind of got that early like 2000s like CGI anime thing going on. Basically, yeah. I will defend the Final Fantasy Spirits Within aesthetic.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, it's very much that.
Yeah, and they're probably directly copying that, but it works for me, and I like that. But hey, Dino Crisis, I'll take more of it. While we're talking about Capcom, we say Capcom rumors basically all the time now. Is there going to be a remake of Code Veronica? Apparently it is 1 minute and then it isn't the next. Then you have there's 5 of us on Twitter that want a Resident Evil 0 remake.
I am one of them.
And eventually Capcom, they have to run out of Resident Evil games because they have multiple games in development at any given time. At the minute they're making 9. And as far as we know, they aren't remaking 5. Although that's a lot of money left on the table because as much as people make fun of Resident Evil 5, it sold a lot of copies.
Isn't 5 and 6 getting just a straight up Series X boost or basically up-res?
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that. So Resident Evil 5 at some point this year is getting a native Xbox Series version. So if people bought the ports years ago, and I think they came out in 2014 or 2015, those were basically bare bones 1080p 30 ports, I believe. But going off the listen of this, it looks like it's probably just going to be 4K 60, basically the PC version. I mean, I think people will be happy with that, but I mean, a full-on remake of 5 with today's technology, maybe not have the yellow filter. We could do a whole show just talking about every game that had that yellow filter over every bloody game.
Over a decade. It was
Yeah,
bad.
like I've been posted about a lot on Twitter recently with Metal Gear Solid 3, yellow filter. Fortunately, now it doesn't have that. All the way up through to Gears of War 3, yellow filter. I don't know what they were thinking, but like every single game, the worst offender was Deus Ex Human Revolution, and I praise that game at every opportunity.
Oh, liquid gold.
Yeah, like I know the aesthetic that they were going for, but my god, the whole game is just yellow. But yeah, Resident Evil. I mean, I'd love to see 5 without the the P filter. Who knows? Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? There's been a bunch of cool things announced recently. Okay, we'll get the only bad news out the way, and it's not really bad news per se, depending on how you look at it. So the Tony Hawk remasters or remakes were announced last week. It's got some Doom content, which looks really cool. It turns out, even though they do have new maps, there's no campaign included. So apparently, the second and third game, the third and fourth game did have some sort of campaign. Or at least one of them did, and the remakes don't include that. Now, as someone that didn't play those games, because I checked, turns out I didn't play 3 and 4, so I have no idea about the campaign in these skateboarding games. I don't know if you remember, Logan, or if you played them at the time.
3, I think, is being preserved as it was, but modified and remade.
Yeah.
But 4 is the one that was really getting criticized for them taking out like this expansive new idea that they had introduced into Tony Hawk 4 for campaign and replacing it with 2-minute, basically trials for different stuff, which is obviously different. And
Yeah.
it's a bummer for some. To me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm still super excited for it. I'm going to get it. But I understand people being like, oh, come on, man. Like, just keep it in there. But, I'd rather have Tony Hawk than no Tony Hawk, so.
Yeah. I mean, by the sounds of it, it's probably one of those cases where maybe some of the code was missing.
It wouldn't shock me.
Like, I know video game developers now, they're more, like, protective of the video games they make. But back then, like, you'd have master code put on, like, a CD and it would be thrown in the back of a drawer. Like, nobody thought about it, and now we, clearly failing that. Like, just to stay on topic, like, the Final Fantasy VIII remaster, like, that didn't get remastered or ported for years because Square Enix lost the source code and someone randomly found it on a CD, apparently. So, who knows what will happen in the future. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why the Silent Hill 2 HD remaster before, Bloober's remake, it had that really sketchy fog and Comic Sans,
Yeah.
signs and other stuff because they had lost part of the code.
Yeah, it's silly, man. That stuff has happened way too much. Like, I would love to, like, just, like, ask a developer that was, like, in charge of one of these games, like, what made them not want to preserve these games? Like, why did you just throw it on a random CD in the back of someone's wardrobe and then sell the wardrobe? It was a weird time for video games. Nobody really cared. Anyway, we'll move on. Oh, this is a good one. So, the Nacon Games Direct happened a few days ago. And let me tell you, it was surprisingly good. So, like, Logan, did you catch the show at all?
I didn't catch it live, but there were several really good announcements, especially which RoboCop, baby.
Yeah. So, like, I'll go over all the games that's coming to Xbox. So, there's a game called Cthulhu: The Cosmic Abyss. That game looks phenomenal, and that comes out in 2026. First person, exploration shooter type thing. Then there was Edge of Memories, which is by the developers of Edge of Eternity, which was a JRPG made by a French studio, and that was their first game, and this is their spiritual successor or sequel. I'm not entirely sure if it is a full-on sequel, but it's using action-based combat. It's leaning into the JRPG tropes with this one. Like, if you watch the trailer, you'd think maybe, Sega had made it. Like, it looks very much like it's made by Japanese developers. But that's coming to Xbox fall 2025. Then they announced the new Styx game, Styx Blade of Greed, and I feel like there hasn't been a Styx game for 7 years. It feels like
Launch of Xbox One.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a long time. And like Styx, the first one when that came out, I had the first one on Xbox One. I used to think, wow, this looks incredible. And there's some in-game stuff being shown for the new one, but like it looks fantastic. And as a fan of stealth games, like again, I cry myself to sleep at night with no Splinter Cell, but like the new Styx game, that looks good. And for people that don't know, it's a stealth game set in this Lord of the Rings-esque style world where you play as an orc that is up to no good, stealing stuff, doing stealthy things. And it looks like you have a bunch of new gadgets and powers in this one. And I mean, if you like stealth games, this is going to be one to keep your eyes on. And it comes out this year. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. They showed off the new trailer for Hell Is Us, which is a third-person single-player action-adventure game. The funny thing about this game is, whenever they showed this the CGI/cinematic trailer, people thought it was a Kojima game because it was so out there, and it is out there.
It has the vibe.
Yeah, it basically has a Death Stranding-ish vibe. And the funny thing is that when they showed off gameplay for the first time, I think 3 or 4 months ago, everyone assumed it was a Souls-like because they showed close quarters melee combat and just like slow walking and stuff and dodging. So like it wasn't the best shown, but with that aside, they've literally came clear as soon as they showed that gameplay, because even I was looking at it thinking that's a Souls-like. But no, it's just a single player action adventure game. There's developers that worked on Deus Ex Human Revolution that worked on this as well, which is a good thing in my book. And it doesn't have the yellow filter, obviously. But yeah, that looks fantastic. That's coming to Xbox this September. The next game was shown was the Mound Omen of Cthulhu. Lots of Cthulhu here, by the way.
Hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah, Nacon are all about that Lovecraftian stuff. They're all over it. But they showed off this trailer for like a new co-op shooter. It looked really good. It's probably visually one of the best looking games there. I mean, if you like Cthulhu, you're going to be all over that. They showed off some updates for some other games. Test Drive Unlimited is getting an expansion. Ravenwatch is also getting an expansion. By the way, all these games I'm mentioning right now that are already out on sale if people want them. In this next game, they showed off, and I've talked about this next game basically non-stop when it came out, right? And that is RoboCop Rogue City. This game is... I'm trying not to swear or say anything rude. This game is a RoboCop fan's dream. And it takes place just after the second movie. And it feels like it's part of that universe. You have the voice actor return, and you have basically developers that were clearly fans of RoboCop. And it was probably one of the best, it was the most realized version of a RoboCop game you could possibly think. Like, Logan, you played it as well. Like, would you say that like RoboCop Rogue City was borderline perfect as RoboCop game?
Oh, it was fantastic. Like, the gunplay was just awesome and crisp, and you could tell the difference between all the weapons. You felt like a walking death machine. And the campaign and the side quests were great. The humor, the dark humor of RoboCop, the gore, the gratuitous, all kinds of stuff. Yes, the facial animations were not the best, but environmentally and weapons wise and like models wise, it was one of the most impressive games visually. And the sound was fantastic. And I just absolutely enjoyed it. It actually got recently announced as one of those you can play on cloud if you own it
Oh, nice.
titles as well. And it's on sale. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So this standalone sequel expansion that's coming out is definitely a must play. If you like RoboCop, or if you were like me and you had never really experienced RoboCop, but you jumped in and loved the game so much, it's gonna be a must play. Can't wait.
Yeah. The funny thing is, when that game came out, RoboCop fans were loving it. Non-RoboCop fans were loving it. But even like the die-hard RoboCop Twitter fans, right? Like they all say the same thing, right? They say the same thing as everyone else. RoboCop 3 may as well not exist. It's an awful film. You had a different actor. It was directed differently. It was just awful, like absolutely awful. And then you have this game that basically just wipes its existence away, which is fantastic. So anyway, they announced an expansion for this, and I hate the term standalone expansion, right?
Hmm.
Because it's just you just say a smaller game or spin-off, right? That's all I want. But anyway, that's a rant for another day. But it's called Unfinished Business, and clearly, and if you read the synopsis for this expansion, screw it, standalone game, they are basically going beat for beat. I'm not even kidding. 2012 Dread. The whole game takes place in a single apartment block, which is like a mega block, and you have to work your way to the top to stop the villains, the criminals. And one, that is a blatant rip-off. And two, I love 2012 Dread, so they can rip it off as much as they want. I don't care. And it looks fantastic. It looks like it also have like flashback sequences where you play it as Murphy the cop, which is really cool because we haven't really seen much of him. If you've seen RoboCop, you kind of know why. But it looks fantastic. They said it's coming this summer. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm guessing July. A lot of developers are clearly wanting to get their games out in the first half of this year. Maybe to push July or August, but I think that'll come out in July. But either way, people should be happy. And another game was shown. And I don't know if it was at the Nacon Direct, but I've got what here, and that is the Sinking City 2. And
More Cthulhu.
yeah, more Cthulhu. Like I don't know why, but all of a sudden there's just lots of Cthulhu games, and the developers have had like a really rough time with the first game because the company that published the first game tried to run the developer out of business or something, and then they couldn't get the rights to their own game, but they've been making this sequel. It's all up in the air, and it's weird. But it looks like they're really leaning into the whole third person, over the shoulder Resident Evil style combat. And it looks really good. Like visually, probably one of the best looking games coming this year. So if people like Resident Evil and Lovecraftian horror, this is going to be a game people need to pick up. But all in all, really cool announcements. And honestly, there wasn't really anything bad shown. Like every game looked good. And it's the beginning of the year still, so it's going to be interesting. Let's say that. I'm just excited we're actually getting more RoboCop, by the way, because when that game came out and I played it, I was like, wow, I want a sequel. But like they made that game in 3 years, so I was thinking, okay, we're going to get a sequel in what 2027. So this is a nice stopgap, but this is the same studio, I believe, that are making Terminator 2 Dino Fate. So like,
Which also looks great.
yeah, which looks great, and they are cooking. Right? they like if their thing is like, hey, we're gonna stick with making movie adaptations or spin-offs or whatever. I said stay with it. Like I would love them to see a Dread game. You know, man, I just put out there, I'm obsessed with that Dread 2012 movie, and I'm still salty that we don't have a sequel. So like, I'll take as much nostalgia as I can. But yeah,
Wasn't there an OG Xbox Dread game as well that was really good?
Yeah, I never got to play it though. Like that was the downside of having an electronics boutique where I lived, because they had the worst. I swear to God, they had the worst selection of video games. If you wanted a racing game or FIFA, you could get that on any console you wanted. But if you wanted like a really cool game you heard of or saw in a magazine, you're out of luck. They wouldn't even bother stocking it. So like that's why I missed out on so many cool games. And I say that as a Riddick fan who never got to play the 2 games. I'm still salty. But yeah, Rogue City, unfinished business. It looks great. What can I say? And I think the price is in the UK it's $34.99, which I think is perfectly fair. And I think it's also getting a physical version as well, which I'm all for. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? Oh, screw it. Let's talk about this now. So, Death Stranding, right? I was talking about this earlier in the show, and Death Stranding is one of the weirdest games I've ever played. And I'll get this out of the way now before we continue with the rest of the topic. Every single time I've talked about Death Stranding, I get at least one reply of talking about how I call it a walking sim or a FedEx simulator. My Twitter is completely open for people to look at my past tweets. I've never once called it a delivery driving simulator. It is a delivery game where you technically turn people's internet back on. Right? That's what you do in that game. But I've never
walk.
Yeah, yeah, lots of walking, and it's a weird game. It's hard to describe, and I always get those sorts of comments. But like, I only ever played it briefly years ago, where I was walking over like a mountain and I didn't understand what was going on. So like, my opinion of it was, it has walking. I don't get it. But like, when I got it for Xbox when it came out, it was I think it was £17.40 something, because it was the 50% off sale with its launch. And like, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this game a chance. And plus, I got it for free with Microsoft reward points. So like, it was a, what's the term, impulse buy, right? So I gave this game a chance because of an impulse buy. And it turns out I actually really enjoy it. So like, I've been looking forward to the sequel. And oh my god. So we get this 10-minute trailer the other day of the sequel. And it's more Death Stranding. It's what you like about Death Stranding, all the freaky stuff going on. The subtle Metal Gear Solid references, which are really on the nose at this point. But
Snake at home.
yeah, by the way, that does not look like Snake. Like, like, if I've ever pictured what Solid Snake would look like as a more realistic character, that's not him. Just no. Like, he might be a great actor, he might be, but just no. No, that is not Solid Snake. But like, the trailer looked great, right? So I posted on Twitter, hey, Death Stranding 2 looks great. I'll buy it whenever it comes to Xbox. And oh my god, untold pandemonium. Like, people got so up in their arms just because I said I'll buy it down the road, Again, I've never made fun of the game at all. I didn't really understand what it was about. And like, I've openly said since I bought it on Xbox, like, it's weird. Like, if you play this game and say it isn't weird, then you need psychiatric help, right? It is a bizarre game, but in a good way. Like, hell, like, you walk around this game where you have this baby in a glass tank stuck to your chest that can see ghosts. That alone is weird, and it works somehow. But like, I just said I'll get it on Xbox at some point, because that has been a question. Like, Kojima purchased the IP from Sony, all of the IP, and the question's been like, when does the sequel come to Xbox? Now, I 100% believe it'll be 1 year. And at that point, I might be on to chapter 10 of the first game, because my God, that game is huge. It feels like every chapter gets bigger and bigger in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of side content, that's ridiculous. But look, the sequel looks good. I'll happily buy it. And as we know, the Decima engine, it clearly runs on Xbox. I mean, hell, Death Stranding runs at 60 frames, I believe, at 1440p on Xbox Series S. Right?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, gorgeous game. I mean, Kojima's never worked on a game that's looked bad, but this game, like, it's stunning. So like, it looks really good. That's all I said, right? And people lost their marbles. I don't get it at this point. Sony doesn't own the game, the IP, shall say. Like, that's Kojima, and like, look, Kojima, like, whoever made the decision, I know 505 Games published it. Like, they had such a like, we'll call it surgeons. I can't think of the word. Surge. I'm all over the place today. They had such a surge with the game when they launched it 50% off that it was number one on the Xbox store in most countries, and the store goes by revenue. Right? So, like, even though this game was £17, it was number one on the store. In fact, right now, if I remember correctly, it is the 70th, or it's either, I think it might be 68th or 69th highest rated game on Xbox Live, which is crazy. Hundreds of positive reviews, and like, people gave it a chance. Hell, like, I've bought a lot of games cheap, thinking, screw it, it's cheap, why not? And I've ended up loving them, right? And this is just one of those games. And like, look, I'll buy the sequel when it comes out. When will it come to Xbox? I 100% believe it will be so it comes out on PlayStation in July. So yeah, July 2026. Which I'm perfectly fine with, They have their marketing deal with Sony. They're going to advertise this heavily. To have a 10-minute trailer event, I thought was pretty interesting, but that's kind of on brand for Kojima. I mean, at some point, he'll probably do like an hour-long trailer. Why not?
Kojima does Kojima, man.
Yeah, yeah. You can't really argue against it, though, because he just does what he does. I think maybe that's why Konami didn't like him. It's like Kojima just wants to do crazy stuff. Like, let him do it. But yeah,
I'm
think
still mad about PT to this day.
Yeah, didn't PT get like removed from the servers?
Yeah, it's crazy. It got removed from the store, and Sony was actually gonna make it backwards compatible. The even though it was just a demo, or the PS5, but Konami specifically told them no. So there is still some not great vibes there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this about Konami: they seem to be doing all the right things about the remake of Metal Gear 3. So like, maybe they're letting their gaming studios, giving them a bit more leeway. I would talk about Konami. Apparently, this summer we're going to see a new trailer or a reveal trailer for a big 3D Castlevania game.
Hey, I'm all for it.
And I mean, look, I loved Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Never actually played the sequel, even though I own it. And people hated the sequel. But like, I would love, my ideal choice, by the way, bit of a tangent, I would love to see From Software make a Castlevania game.
Oh, they seem perfect.
But yeah, anyway, Death Stranding 2, I'm guessing a year. Who knows? But I mean, look, they had such a influx of fans with that game. The FedEx Simulator. I will say this though, some of the comments to the last trailer, I think were pretty funny. So someone called it DoorDash 2. Like, I couldn't help but laugh, because you do deliver a lot of packages in that game. You walk a lot, you turn people's internet back on, but it's weird. I mean, there's a mission early on, and I think this is where a lot of people fall in love with the game, where you have to carry this corpse up a mountain, and then music starts playing, and it's like it completely sets the tone for the rest of the game. Postman Pat Simulator, that's it. Like but it's fun at the same time. You know, you have like interesting vehicles. There's weird enemies. By the way, while we talked about, there's an interesting gaming mechanic in Death Stranding I never hear people talk about. So there's non-lethal weapons in Death Stranding, like tasers and all that type of stuff. If you accidentally, end someone's life in that game, they go nuclear. So you have to take them to a furnace type place. And like, I've never seen anything like that in a video game. So your punishment in the game for going full lethal is, if you don't burn this corpse, there's going to be a crater here. Like a supernatural crater. And I just think, I don't think anyone else has the cojones to do that, because most people, or a lot of people, are going to play this game and just think, oh, it's an action game, it's a shooter. And you can play it as a shooter if you want, but you're going to be carrying a lot of corpses or dealing with a lot of supernatural beings. But that aside, sequel next year. I'm okay with it. The game looks great though. Like I said, the on the nose Metal Gear references, like the snake dude and the machine, the giant machine on the dude's head. That is blatantly Metal Gear Rex. Blatantly. Like you couldn't draw Metal Gear Rex any other way, and that is it. But yeah. Logan, have you got anything else to say on Death Stranding 2 before we close out the topic?
Oh, I'm just excited for it, and I hoped that it wouldn't be timed exclusive, but I mean, there hasn't officially been confirmation that it is or isn't, but the way they presented it, it kind of makes it seem like it will be. But I agree with you. I think if it isn't a day and date game for everyone, then I think within a year. I don't think they're going to make us wait 5 years for this one.
Yep. I mean, don't you also own the collector's edition, right?
Yep, I have the baby lava lamp looking thing, and the little Luden's keychain, and the delivery case, and all the blueprints and the files. Yeah, it was crazy. Is they had like a Black Friday deal on the PS4 collector's edition, so I got it all for like $60.
Oh,
so I was
that's
like,
good.
hey, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, that's actually a good price. The collector's edition of the new one, looks freaky.
It works.
Yeah, it works. I have seen a lot of people complain about there being no disc, with the collector's edition. Unfortunately, that's the norm now. Yeah,
I
and
can speak from experience. Last PlayStation Collector's Edition I got was Horizon Forbidden West. It came with the giant Tremor Trusk statue and a steelbook and a code for the game. Just like Avowed, the steelbook edition came with a code for the game. It seems to be just the way that the industry's going, whether people like it or not.
yeah. Do you know what the catalyst for that stuff was? It was Dead Space 2. Dead Space 2, it either didn't come with a code, it either came with a download code or no game at all, if I remember correctly. And that was the first game that did it. Because I had collector's editions up until like 2014, 15, and they did come with discs, but like I'm 99% sure it was Dead Space 2. Like they basically did it, but I wish in future, and I do hope we still get the option for disc for many years to come. I wish they'd give us the option for collector's editions. Like, just let us choose the disc, because they're still going to be putting this stuff together for months in factories. Like, give people the option, and like, how much does the disc cost to print? Really, because a lot of these cases come with a case anyway. Right, the collector's editions still come with a steelbook sometimes. So what? The disc costs a few pennies. Like, the Blu-ray disc plus the sticker on the Blu-ray disc. So I'll go and say 50 cents, right? Is it really that much of a big deal? But yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what, Logan? You want to talk about this because I had no idea up until right before the show started. Blizzard apparently making some moves.
Yeah, BlizzCon was announced that they're coming back in 2026. There isn't an in-person 2025, but they're for sure going back to normal in 26, and that they have some exciting things in store for people. And the president, Johanna Ferris, spoke with Windows Central about some of their things they're working on, and she talked more about her background, how she worked in the NFL, National Football League, for those who don't follow sports, for 12 years, and then got into gaming business and everything. And ironically enough, was in charge of Call of Duty for a long time, and then went to Blizzard, which is an interesting career move. And she's the president of Blizzard now, and she's kind of shepherding them in this new era under Microsoft, and where Blizzard is allowed to just be Blizzard and isn't, like technically the deal was Activision Blizzard King, but Blizzard is like Blizzard again. They're not Activision-y. So she talked about that they're looking at, making it where they adapt more of their IPs into projects outside of just gaming. So maybe a StarCraft movie or show would be something really cool. Um, there's all kinds of stuff talked about that. That they're looking at bringing back some stuff, like listening to fans to make the housing for World of Warcraft and stuff, which had been requested for a long time, but they never did under Codec. But they're like, you know what? This is a new era. We want to listen to the fans and give them some things that they've been requesting. And overall, I mean, there wasn't like too many major takeaways, but it was just a nice reassuring piece that it seems like she's got a good head on her shoulders, and Blizzard is in a good direction.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we see like some different things come out, I know there's been rumors of the whole like StarCraft shooter thing happening. Um, I hope that's real. Let them do what they want. And like, ever since like Activision really dipped their toes into Blizzard like big time, like the extreme monetization, the expensive skins in World of Warcraft, which people pay for. Like I think there was a $90 dinosaur skin last year in World of Warcraft, and it outsold some games.
These whale accounts single-handedly fund development for some of these games. Like Diablo Immortal was absolutely egregiously bad.
Yeah.
Like for cosmetics as well.
Yeah. Do you know there was someone that spent so much on cosmetics and like power-ups in Diablo Immortal that they became so powerful they couldn't be match made with other people. So this person spent
demigod status.
basically, yeah. Like this person spent like $100,000, basically leveling up their character with cash.
Good grief!
Like, by the way, if you're spending that kinds of money, more money than sense. Wow. But yeah, I think it was the what was it? It was the blue sparkle mount for World of Warcraft made more money than StarCraft 2. Like, crazy. We're going to be talking about prices of stuff in a bit, but I mean, hey, look, I hope we see more cool stuff from Blizzard. I mean, like, they have really interesting, like, characters and just stuff they can make. Like, basically, I'm praying for anything StarCraft. Right? They have such an interesting sci-fi universe there. And like hell, put StarCraft on console. Right? To say that
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, to say that wouldn't work on a console, that's false. As Logan's mentioned in the past, StarCraft was on the Nintendo 64. So if we can get that game to work on a controller that's made for people with 3 hands, I think we can get it to work on an Xbox controller. At this point,
Especially in a era with Age of Mythology and
yeah,
Age of Empires expertise working on the platform.
yeah, like Age of Empires and Age of Mythology like work so well on a controller. You can tell they like put a lot of time and effort into like figuring out how people want to play this on a couch, and it works. And they just have to do that with the hell. Let the Age of Empires team take a crack at ports.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? I mean, those games look really good. Age of Mythology, like Logan, have you played Age of Mythology yet?
I haven't yet, but I absolutely want to. I adore the original one, so I really do look forward to playing this one.
Like the amount of detail and just the high resolution models of high polygon count models of like the monsters and stuff. Right, it's such a cool game to just watch, because that's one of the cool things about RTS games. I know I'm being a bit nerdy here, but like seeing the actual battle play out is part of the fun. And I think people would love StarCraft on console. And I'm speaking for everyone. But yeah, Blizzard. I hope we see more cool stuff soon. I mean, after the I was gonna say the tragic of Darth Plagueis for some reason, but when it comes to like Overwatch 2, like they had the big setup for a huge success. They're like, hey, we're coming out with a sequel, but if you have the first game, you can play against people in 2, but the sequel will get a campaign. And then during the pandemic, they cancelled the campaign, which was the main reason to buy the sequel. like,
Colossal backdrop.
yeah,
Just failed.
like what were they thinking? And Overwatch 2, like, went from being a game that had so much potential, and now everyone's playing Marvel Rivals. So they have to get some stuff out, and I'm sure they will. Blizzard's one of the best in the industry. They'll come out with some stuff. I will say this though, I do think in the next year we will hear about Warcraft coming to console.
I hope so. I'd play it if they did.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, we have I was gonna say RTS games. We have MMOs on console. I've talked about it a lot, but New World. I think New World is the best MMO on console. It plays good. It's fun. It looks great. And like, if you want an MMO on console, I highly recommend it. But like, if we can get World of Warcraft, which is the biggest MMO on a console, it'd be great. And like, there is basically controller support for I was gonna say StarCraft. I'm all over the place today. For World of Warcraft. But like, if you've seen the UI in that game, oh, absolutely atrocious. People have all kinds of hotkeys and all that stuff. Like, it's a mess. But if they can sort of do some optimized version for a controller and a console, I mean, that would just do really well. And yes, it is a subscription based game, but who knows what can happen? Like, hell, I have seen some games do this where you buy the MMO upfront, and the only thing you buy afterwards is expansions and skins. And I think that would be a
New
good.
World did that.
Yeah, New World. I think New World is like £39 in the UK, and you're getting hundreds of hours of content, and the only thing you have to pay for is like cosmetics. And I think most future expansions are going to be free, and that's still getting free content today. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with Blizzard, because again, they're such a huge studio. I do think we will actually see the console version of Warcraft teased at BlizzCon next year. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? We'll talk about this stuff now, because I got enraged, right? I don't like mentioning other people, but let's just say one of the biggest streamers on the planet put out a tweet yesterday talking about how, why are people complaining about GTA being $100? People buy battle passes and skins every year. You're going to be getting one polished game that's took years to make. And I thought that was extremely naive. Like, a lot of publishers in the industry are waiting to see what Rockstar does because, look, when companies raised the price of video games to $70 back in 2020, people were livid. People were angry that games are randomly going up for $10 for no reason. £10 here, even more so if you live in like countries like Australia, like absolutely absurd prices for video games. And you have this person that's rich basically said, no, they should do it. You know, like they're gonna make billions alone from microtransactions, and people like Logan, you've probably seen this. Like people willingly just saying on Twitter, I would happily pay $100 for this game. Now I don't think it will be, but the fact that people are okay with it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's egregious, outrageous, deplorable, just unbridled greed for $100 to be even thought of as okay or a base game. Like I said, there are some extenuating circumstance games that I could think of $100 being okay for. Like, if it's a collector's edition, a special edition, something that comes with a whole bunch of stuff, extra stuff, or like, we've talked about this before. Like, I was one of the knuckleheads who paid for the early college football so I could get it. But that to me was an extenuating circumstance because literally that game was illegal to make for almost 20 years until they finally changed laws in image and likeness and made it to where they were allowed to make it again. And so I'm like, I've waited like almost 20 years for this game. I will pay up front to get the game early and get extra content for it. And that was a rare, rare blue moon event for me. Like, just for a base game, $100? No way, Jose. Not on my watch. Absolutely not. I will see you at spring sale, buddy. Like, no way.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned the college football thing. Like, I think being offered to like spend a little bit more and you get it early with like skins or whatever it comes with, like I think that's perfectly fine. It's an optional thing. But like
Hmm.
people that and by the way, I've had journalists reply to me like this, like how I've been told I've been cheap. Um, I mean, screw them.
You're
But
penny pinching, so and so.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's ridiculous. Like the price of games went up 4 years ago, and we talking about this still about how the games should go up in price again. And it's like we've talked about this. I feel like every episode for the past few months, but like I've never heard anyone say, "Jamie, these cinema tickets should cost more." No one said that. I
It's
would
extortion.
I would bet not a single person on earth has ever said that. I wish the cinema ticket cost more money. No one thinks that. Every time Netflix raises the price $1, what do we see online? Outcry. People complain.
Oh, sorry. Whining about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like people just like talking about it all the time, and like people going online saying, you know what, this Nvidia graphics card, I want it to cost more. Not a single person's ever said that, ever. But for some reason, with video games, people like to do this weird flex thing where they're like, no, I want to pay more for this. I'm willing to pay, X amount for GTA because I'm going to play hundreds of hours for it. Why? Why? Like, I've put hundreds of hours into games that cost $60, $70, $40. But, like GTA Online is going to make billions alone from microtransactions, multiplayer slop to the highest degree, and people just are like, let's give them more money. Let's give them more. And I bet, right? I bet that this is going to be the shortest GTA campaign. I think they've put all their eggs in the basket for multiplayer. I think Dan Houser leaving Rockstar we will see, when that game comes out. And the game's going to come out. It's going to be the fastest selling game of all time. It's going to generate $2 billion in revenue in 48 hours. I think it'll sell 20 million copies in the first week, 25 million even. But, like, I think if people think we're going to get a Red Dead Redemption 2 length campaign, they're crazy. I 100% believe this is going to be the shortest GTA campaign, and they're going to push GTA Online hard. Really hard, because look, I've mentioned this before. I was addicted to GTA Online, right, to the point where I put, I think, 37,000 hours in that game. Not even kidding.
Ooh.
30. Do you know what that is? 3 months. That's 3 months of my life on that game. Do you want to know the scarier part, Logan? Which I've never talked about this, about this part. I've mentioned how I was addicted to GTA Online. I never put a penny into shark cards. When I put that 35 to 37,000 hours into GTA Online, that was across 2 years. So 3 months of my life across 2 years was spent in GTA Online. Like, people can hop on Twitter, right, and say, "Oh, he's an Xbox. He prefers Xbox." Blah 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 blah. No, I was addicted to GTA Online. Before I was posting regularly on Twitter about gaming news, every time I had a chance to play a video game, I was firing up GTA 5 and playing GTA Online on my Xbox 360. My Xbox 360 was on almost all the time, even though the new consoles came out, because I wanted to get my GTA Online fix. And then I had to stop playing it. I was like, I can't do this anymore, because I was doing the same repetitive tasks over and over again. And I was like, this is wasting my time. I'm not accomplishing anything. And you're not really accomplishing anything by playing a video game in general other than having fun. But, like, I wasn't even having fun. And this isn't like, how people have their regular game they play every week or month. Maybe they play Call of Duty every week with their friends. It wasn't even on that level. I was playing this just to make as much money as I can in-game. And that's all I did when I played these games. So, like, yeah, 3 months of my life wasted to multiplayer GTA slop. Maybe that's why I sound a bit bitter. Because, like,
I don't blame him.
Because I love GTA, right? I think, the gameplay mechanics are great. I think I love the driving in GTA 5. Absolutely love the driving. But, like, what it deteriorated to over time was processed slop. Like, I actually felt bad for putting that amount of time into GTA Online. And this was before the heists. I'm not even kidding, and I might be lowballing it, I made around $360 million in that game. In the multiplayer. Right? I bought all sorts of cars, apartments. I even bought the submarine, even though I didn't bother doing the mission. Like I was like, oh, I want that submarine. That's $8 million. Right? Because I just could. And, like, it's a bad game. Oh, they have this multiplayer, expansion content where it's got story stuff. Well, guess what? My prediction years ago was that they had these expansions planned, ready to go, but they changed them into multiplayer expansions. And by the looks of it, I may be right. So, yeah. I just feel like we rant, or at least I rant about GTA every single week now. But when I saw that that post about prices, it set me off, man. Right? We shouldn't be pushing these developers and publishers, it's not even the developers, these publishers to, charge more for video games. This is 2025 in a nutshell when it comes to video games. We get charged more than ever before for video games. We get less, most of the time, at less quality. Games come out broken day one. A lot of games offer microtransactions day one, which, depending on how you look at them, you don't get much. You have battle passes in premium games, and it's like I just can't take it anymore. Like, I've hit my breaking point. We should be pushing against this, and the fact that I see people that have a huge influence on people just think it's okay. We should let them get away with it. And like, look, people will say this. Everyone listening right now and listening later, you will see this in your social feeds at some point. I'm willing to pay that much for GTA because it's worth it. Let me tell you why that is the worst thing possible, because that's not how these companies work, right? You're going to have Ubisoft, EA, all these other publishers come out and see that game being listed for maybe $80, and they are going to do the same thing for every single one of their releases. And you have to sit back and let it happen, because you let it happen. And that's why I sound so annoyed. Like, it will be the catalyst for prices going up across the board. And when I see people pushing that, it's going to be worth it, like, that's why I push back on it. Now, I have been whining non-stop for 10 minutes. Logan, do you want to say anything on GTA 6 and its rumored price before we move on?
Oh, sure. Just basically, I echo your thoughts. I never played the online, so obviously I did not have as intimate knowledge of it as you did. But I was never inclined to play it or interested by it. And then the more I saw of it, the more I was like, yeah, this just isn't for me. And the more annoyed it made me that they canceled like the single player stuff that they were going to have originally. And, the fact that, Red Dead 2 never got a Nightmare expansion like everybody thought it should. And it makes me very weary of Take-Two. Like they kind of just have a way of operating in general that is very like the cost is on you, not them. And it's your problem, not their problem for all their stuff. And like even some games, like I remember you and others have tried to game clip some old BC games or stuff and like getting takedown notices or not allowed to share clips of stuff. Like it's like why? Why would you block somebody from being able to share old clips of this game in the first place? It's free advertising, free marketing for your titles. And just the idea that some quote unquote analysts are pushing this, like anonymous analysts or executives or whatever, like they won't put a face to the name or put their name out there and say like, yes, I want this to happen and it should happen, and they're just everybody's waiting on Rockstar. It's just, I don't know, like I get it from a business sense. If you can make $100 off suckers to buying your game, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't you do it? But as a consumer, I absolutely despise it,
Yeah.
and I don't support it, and I am very much on the. This is why so many people I know have become never day oneers, where they just don't buy games day one anymore. Like they wait at least a month or two for bugs, for price, for experience, for features, other things, because inevitably there's going to be a whole slew of changes to these games within even that amount of time compared to launch. And it's it's been proven right and right again, and like I understand it, and I'm frankly more leaning towards that style of purchasing as well. Like there are a few games I'll buy day one to support the studio, or like if it's something I'm just particularly hyped for. But in general, with Game Pass, it makes it where I can play it in Game Pass, and if I love it, I can buy it down the line. Or, save money for this or that or whatever. It's just, I don't know. Like, for example, I'm a die-hard Star Wars guy. Like, I was, like, obsessed with Star Wars EU back in the day. And, like, knew all the ins and outs of the lore, had the compendiums, the vehicles, the character stuff, like knew all these ins and outs, obscure things. I was the Star Wars guru of my friends group and everything. And like I waited on Outlaws because I thought the pricing and how they hid certain things and the gameplay mechanics, some of the stuff that came out at launch was a problem. And it hurt because I really wanted it day one, but I'm like, nah, on good principle, I just can't do that. And so I waited, and just yesterday or the day before, I finally bought Outlaws, the 120 something dollar edition, marked all the way down to $64. So
Oh,
basically, the price of a normal game. And I'm like, you know what? This is reasonable. This is normal. I win. And so I got it and I'm thrilled. It's on cloud. Very happy. But it just it just shows that patience is a virtue, especially in purchasing these games. And $100 up front for a base game is just malpractice.
yeah. I mean, there's someone that used to buy.
Sorry for that.
No, it's fine. But it's someone that used to buy like a lot of Ubisoft games day one. Like I got so many Assassin's Creed games that were the gold edition. You know, where they came with the expansion pass. And like to me, that's the value right there, right? So it was 90. I think it was like £95 or something. You get the base game and 2 upcoming expansions. And like I think one of them you actually got Assassin's Creed 3 remastered as well. And to me, like that was well worth the £99. So like
Yeah.
for things like that, I completely get it, but like base price, screw that. Before we continue, we're about an hour and 25 minutes into the show. If you're enjoying it, please hit like, share, and subscribe. I hate doing these little ads, but basically it helps the channel grow and the podcast grow. It all helps. If you want to support the channel with super chats, it's greatly appreciated. Helps grow the channel with all sorts of stuff. Anyway, we'll move on. So that's me whining about GTA done for this week. We'll return to this topic next week. Seems to be.
You want to talk Square?
Yeah, oh my god! You know why? While we're still talking about Rockstar, I want to get this out of the way because you mentioned this, right? Rockstar, or should I say Take-Two, they block DVR on almost every single backwards compatible game.
Mm-hmm.
And that infuriates me because, like, people watching right now, you can see these gameplay clips, right? I have about, I want to say 800 gigabytes of clips, right? So, like, that's how I can always post gameplay on Twitter or something because I archive my gameplay. And the amount of times I've been playing a 2K game, backwards compatible, and like, oh, what's this? I can't capture it unless I get a capture card. So, which I will be getting at some point, but like even like XCOM, the third person shooter, like I bought that when it became backwards compatible, and I hit the record button, and they had it blocked. Like,
Yep, the Bureau.
yeah, the Bureau, and like I was so disappointed. And then there's the BioShock games, even BioShock the collection. Had game DVR turned off. And I think now you can record clips in the first game. Someone messaged me that anyway. But like it's deplorable. And people have told me it's about licensed music. No, it's not. Because they have the tools to just to outright turn music off or turn audio off. Like GTA 4, you can record clips, but there's no sound. And at a push, I'm okay with that. But my God, something's got to give. And if they pull that crap with GTA 5, which I doubt they will, they'll never hear the end of it. Right? Especially from me.
You know how many streamers would get like suddenly silenced if they weren't allowed to, stream GTA 6 and stuff? Like how many, digital rights takedowns would happen and stuff? It would be ridiculous.
This is how egregious Rockstar is, right? So they have TV shows in game, which is part of the video game. Apparently, if you upload gameplay that has any of the TV shows in them, you get copyright claims. Some Twitch streamers have been hit with like strikes because they were just playing a game, right? So like, I feel sorry for people that exclusively cover Rockstar because you can't use any of their footage, and you can't use a lot of your own. So, man, Rockstar, they can just be normal. They are the least fan centric company on earth, and it infuriates me. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what, Logan, you want to talk about this because it's actually been a big topic lately. So, Destin ABK, former of IGN, uh, apparently put out a video talking about the ABK deal.
Yeah, he had a video, like he posted a thread on Twitter that kind of got a lot of attention and blew up, basically saying how he thought the ABK deal was a waste of time or was essentially not worth it. Like nothing had really come from it, a whole bunch of stuff. And then to further, you know, condense and to further, really talk about his thoughts, he made a video on it. And the video was, it had a headline that was kind of hyperbolic, but, he's a good guy and I've enjoyed his content in the past. So I'm like, I'll watch it, give him the benefit of the doubt, watch the video, see what he actually has to say, listen to the whole thing. And he honestly made some really good points. And basically, he talked about how, you know, they spent years trying to get this drag through regulators, which was not their fault. It was just the climate that was. And they got it done eventually, and all these people were excited and were kind of sold this image and idea of what they were going to do with all the stuff. And that 2 years later, it has kind of been very underwhelming, like to put it mildly. Like some would say a waste of time, or it was a failure, or like they haven't done anything. I'd say it's a mixed bag personally, but like he went on to like one of his top points was backwards compatibility, which I know you, me, and all the 360, and OG gamers just, we keep going back to that era, but there's a reason the games were incredible. We would like to keep playing them. But like he talked about how the prototypes, like the original ones, not the quote ports for Xbox One, aren't BC, how Singularity isn't BC, and like he talked about how comical it was. He's like, so let me get this straight. Like you're making so much money on, Xbox or PC store versions of these games or titles or old listings of these games that you can't just let people even who own it physically on disc put them in and play them. Or like for example, they had Singularity was listed I think for like $40 or $30 somewhere on PC store or something like that, and but it wasn't on Xbox store. And he's like, are you seriously telling me that you can't have your lawyers who you employ at Raven talk to your lawyers who you employ at Bethesda or Activision, or and then Xbox work something out for an IP you own? He's like, give me a break. This makes no sense. And he talked about that. He talked about how everybody wants to license games like Transformers, X-Men, all those, but obviously they're a different case because of outside parties. But stuff like Singularity really hit home, and Prototype and stuff like that. It's like you own these. Surely, at the very least, you, even if you don't want to relist them digitally, or you can't for some dumb reason, you own them. Surely you can. You can make them playable by disc. Like for crying out loud, we talked about it last time, but um, Peter Jackson's King Kong and 50 Cent Blood on the Sand were made BC. And those were licensed to heck, those games. So much music, movie images, all kinds of stuff. But they were allowed to be BC, and for people who already owned the discs or had already owned them digitally. Like, surely at the very least you could do that. It like I hate to say it's easy or it's not that difficult, but he made that point like surely that can happen, and I completely agree on that. he talked about World of Warcraft not being on console yet. Like, I think it should be on console, and I agree it's a priority, and they need to do it. I disagree with him that it needed to have happened by now because that is a pretty quick turnaround for something of that size. Like, that's one area I disagree with him on, but I do think it is a good idea. And then he talked about bringing StarCraft to console, and he even used our N64 example. He's like, "Don't tell me you can't get this on console." And he pulled up his N64 controller and StarCraft. He's like, "I I have it right here, N64. Don't tell me this can't work." And so he talked about that, and then Tony Hawk and bringing back these IPs and just the absolutely egregious, anemic, just downright putrid rollout of titles into Game Pass. Like, you get an Activision title once every few months, maybe. And it's like, where are all these titles? Like, surely it's not locked up somewhere, somehow, so tightly that you can't have a better rollout than this. Overall, I agreed with his points. Some of it was hyperbolic, but I think he got a lot of unnecessary hate for his video because people get really defensive. But his points came from a good place, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Sorry, that was long winded.
no, no, it's fine. I mean, it's a podcast talk as much as you want, you know. Um, it's a weird one because I've mentioned this a few times, but I'll reiterate. And I've been mentioning this for a few months. I think the slow rollout in like the no BC batch and all that stuff. I 100% think it's Microsoft. Like they are basically squeezing all the money out of Black Ops 6, right? Black Ops 6 is generating huge amounts of money. There's premium skins that are attractive to a lot of people. I mean, the Terminator skins. I was playing Warzone Resurgence the other day. Almost every player was a Terminator. You know, so like that that game generates revenue. And even though I know it doesn't make sense, like you're not going to have Call of Duty fans gravitate towards Singularity, but the amount of stuff that's been happening behind the scenes that just can't be explained doesn't make sense. Singularity gets a Windows Store listing with Windows Store art, which never existed before. Nothing's happened since. Old Call of Duty games get listed on the Windows Store, but not to play or download. And then I believe someone found an Xbox Store listing for Singularity recently, and then it was pulled. So like,
Mm.
and as someone that I own the 360 version, I bought it when the store closed last year. I bought a bunch of games. A lot of people bought a lot of games when they were closing the 360 store, but the store version for Xbox had the Xbox 360 art, which has never been available on Xbox One or Series consoles. So someone had to be paid to make that art for Singularity. So like, there's something obviously happening, and like I've had developers from Microsoft like posts when I talk about Activision, backwards compatible games. So like,
Mm.
there's something happening. But we just if Microsoft came out and said, "Look, none of this stuff's going to be happening until like August," I'd be like, "Cool, that's all we want to know, right?" But
Yeah.
we just want to know if they'll come, because like, look, every time I bring up Transformers, the Cybertron games online, people are salivating for those games, and plus, like Transformers fans, they would like a video game to play. Like, it's been a long time since we've had a big quality, Transformers game. I mean, hell, Reactivate got cancelled a while back. Like, give them something to play. Hasbro said multiple times they want the game in Game Pass, and like, there's a huge market for those games. Now, do I think like, Guitar Hero, all that stuff? Like, no. I was posting about this earlier today, but Wolverine X-Men Origins, right? I know for a fact that is probably never going to be backwards compatible because of all the licensing stuff. But man, like, I put it like this: when Wolverine and Deadpool came out last summer, every copy of X-Men Origins Wolverine and Deadpool shot up way in price. Like my copy of Wolverine, I think cost £60. And it turns out it's a ex-journalist's copy. Which
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which explains why it's in actual good condition, not a scratch on it. But like those games shot up in price, and like we talk about this every week. Like game preservation, it's big for both of us, and like backwards compatibility. It's like I love the fact that I can fire up my Xbox Series X and play Xbox games, 360 games. Like hell, like when backwards compatibility was first announced for Xbox One in 2015, you have no idea how much I lost my marbles when I forgot his name stood up on stage.
Horror, right?
Yeah, Mikey Barra. He's been left from Xbox for a while. My memory is like a goldfish at this point. But when he was on stage and they were playing Mass Effect, that game I talk about nonstop, I lost my marbles, right? I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be able to play this on my console, right? I don't have to have the 360 hooked up constantly, right? So, like, I lost my mind, and I was, like, hype training to get, like, Mass Effect 2 and 3 backwards compatible for years. I think it took 2 years to get 2 and 3 BC. But, like, that's how much I love going back to old games. And, like, look, my 360 Slim, it works, but it's not going to be like that forever. I would like to be able to play my Singularity, my Wolverine, and, Singularity again. Just basically everything Activision. But I get people are tired of waiting. But I 100% think it's just Black Ops 6, when the Call of Duty lobbies were fixed, I think it was last year or the year before, like, there was over 250,000 people playing Black Ops. Like, and there's no crossplay there. So that was people on Xbox versions of the game firing it up on their Xbox One or Series X. And, like, it was so easy to get into a match. And I think Microsoft, because those games don't have microtransactions, by the way. So, like, I think Microsoft, they want everyone to stay on Black Ops 6, maybe till when the summer comes and there's less people playing it because they're getting ready for this year's Call of Duty. I think that's maybe when they'll drop. But I think up front, Microsoft should just say, hey, it'll come this summer. Maybe not even give us an entire list, just say they are coming. Because all that stuff behind the scenes with the game art and stuff, it wouldn't just be happening for no reason. Steam database listings getting updated, like something is happening, we just can't figure out what. And it's tiresome, I think that gamers have waited long enough, and Destin, like, was the title a bit clickbaity? I mean, it depends who you ask, but he had a point. We want the Activision stuff, and maybe putting like a single player game in once every few weeks, we'll do it. But like, when was the last Activision game? It was the Crash Bandicoot racing game, right?
Yeah, and we were supposed to get, or it had been posted by some pretty reliable leakers that, Crash 4 was supposed to hit in like February.
Yeah.
Obviously, that never happened. And so I guess they were wrong on that. It happens. But it seems odd that it's still, to this day, even Tony Hawk 1 and 2, like,
Yeah.
that has to get in there fast before 3 and 4, because that would be a colossal missed opportunity.
Yeah, you mentioned this last week when the games were announced. Like, yeah, you've got a good point. Like, wouldn't this drive people to pre-order the follow-ups? Like put
It just seems common sense to me.
yeah, like put 1 and 2 in Game Pass. I mean, there's always a wave of hype whenever an Activision game goes to Game Pass. Like, in considering how much Tony Hawk's popped off in the past week because of all the news, like, the answer's right there waiting for them. It's ridiculous. And you know what? We'll move on. But I just hope we see this stuff soon because man, it feels like the months are dragging on, and I say this every week. Like I have literally copies of Transformers Cybertron 1 and 2 wrapped, unopened. I'd prefer to keep it that way. It turns out they are going up in price by the day. So I would like to keep them and frame them sealed as a collector's item. I'll buy them digitally. I don't care. But yeah.
Yeah, like I have a tub of older I don't know if that's the word y'all use in Britain, but like basically like a tub bin thing in my closet with my older, 360 and OG games that are Activision and, Blizzard, and also some first party games that for whatever reasons were never made BC, like just waiting on the call, and I'll get that tub down and put the disc in and be ready to roll.
You mentioned that, and I was wondering, what do we call those plastic boxes in the UK? And I have one literally right next to me. We call them flip-top boxes.
Flip top boxes, okay, because we call them tubs here, which I know it sounds like like a bath, but
But yeah, man, I just want them to come. Like, if they really want to get on my really good side, and this will never happen, by the way. Guitar Hero 2, please. uh,
even if it's 5 songs.
yeah, like my god, like bit of a tangent. Like I was obsessed with Guitar Hero 2.
Same, I'd hurt my arms playing that so much.
Yeah, I used to play it for hours. Like Guitar Hero 2, the soundtrack list was incredible. I remember we got the Halo 3 theme for free.
Mjolnir mix, yes.
Yeah, and like I think we got the Top Gun song for free as well. And it was such a good game. Like I played it so much, and I wasn't the best player in the world where I played it on hard with all 5 buttons. Or it was 6, I can't remember. But like I was able to play Monkey Wrench by the Foo Fighters without looking at the screen because I played it hundreds and hundreds of times. Right? Will that ever be backwards compatible? No chance. Like, like you have like 100 songs by like 8 different record labels. It's just not happening. If Microsoft really wants to make money, not even kidding, come out with a Taylor Swift edition of Guitar Hero.
Oh my gosh, they would like single-handedly fund like 5 Halos doing that.
Yeah, like that. Like for some reason, I get a lot of Swifty content in my Twitter feed, and I don't know why.
Like, she's omnipresent, man. She's everywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, if Microsoft they want that money up front, Taylor Swift, Guitar Hero. People will make fun at first, but if you put a picture of Taylor Swift on an Xbox Series X, you've won the generation. You might think I'm joking, but you've seen how much
he's not joking.
Like if you seen
it's like Hello Kitty on steroids. It's like people will buy it like nothing.
Like, did you see how much those era tickets cost?
Yeah, it was basically like take out a loan and good luck.
Yeah, like ridiculous. But yeah, that's Activision. Hopefully, we see stuff soon. Speaking of Activision, I'll get this out of the way quick because someone mentioned it in my feed. Call of Duty are bringing back Verdansk to Warzone. I think on April 3rd. I never really got to play on that map, so I don't really have any positive or negative things. I know there's a lot of weight on this Call of Duty Verdansk map, but for the love of God, Microsoft, Activision, bring back the Modern Warfare weapons. Like I can't be using Black Ops weapons in Warzone. You know what? We'll talk about the Xbox handheld stuff, and so basically, I'm gonna post the link for Jez's article in a pinned comment once the show's done. I can't do that live, but I'll try and do it if I can. But Jez Corden from Windows Central, and this has been going around for a while. We don't necessarily know if it's true or not, but the thought was, from Jez from Windows Central, that this year will be a Xbox OEM handheld made by third-party companies like an LG or Samsung or Asus. And this year's console will actually be a PC-centric device with possible Xbox streaming software. So as you know, the what do you call it? The ROG Ally and the Steam Deck and the Lenovo Legion Go. These popular PC handhelds, which are really popping off. And I mentioned this earlier today on Boom Show, but I'll get into that in a minute. But Logan, what's your take on Jez Corden talking about how this year's Xbox handheld is a PC device?
At first it kind of took me by surprise, but then I read through the article and I sat there and thought about it for a minute, and I remembered that Jason Ronald, shouts to him and his team, um, were was at some partner events earlier in the year, talking specifically about working with other partners in the industry like Asus and Steam and others for their PC devices and their Steam Decks, their ROG Allies, stuff like that, to better understand them, to better optimize them for Xbox experiences, and for research and development purposes for developing their own when they get to it. So to me, it seems like a smart kind of bridge device, quote unquote, to have this come out this year, have basically a partner do most of the heavy lifting, but Xbox optimizes it for some Xbox stuff, and it comes out this year, and kind of just test the market, see how it does, and then take what they learn from that and use it for their own devices. John from Xbox Era said he believed it was probably going to be Asus was probably the partner that they were working with for this. Whether that happens or not, who knows? But I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what happens because it's a weird time for video games, and we'll get on to the rest of the topic in a bit when because it's a big topic and it affects most Xbox users. But I'll get the streaming handheld or Xbox PC handheld out of the way first because I have a kind of particular different take on the whole thing. So like Xbox next generation console, it's obviously coming. The native Xbox handheld is coming, which we'll talk about in a minute. But here's my theory on the whole PC thing. The whole Xbox everywhere thing, I think, is a result, and I 100% believe this, is SteamOS. Back in the early 2000s and late 90s, Microsoft was worried that PlayStation would take over the living room. That's why we have an Xbox, right? Because, the PlayStation 2 was going to have a DVD player in it, this futuristic device, and it would have internet connectivity. So, they would own the living room because you'd be playing video games in your living room and using this game console as a movie player. Wild futuristic times. And
just can't stand.
Yeah, and back then it was really out there that what this console's going to do. So Microsoft came out with the Xbox and all that stuff. And the way I say this now is that Xbox isn't just a console; it's an ecosystem, it's a brand. I 100% think that with SteamOS being allowed to be going to third-party products, I think SteamOS is now available on an LG device or something. So I think this is Microsoft's response to SteamOS. SteamOS is going to pick up in popularity. The Steam Deck is already huge. SteamOS is going to third-party handhelds. And also there's going to be Steam boxes out later this year or early next year. So this is Microsoft, in my opinion, looking at how they can take the living room, not necessarily back from PC, from SteamOS, but at least compete, because every other time Microsoft's tried to make a move in some area, they've either been too early or too late. We've seen back with Zune, we've seen back with the Windows Phone. Hell, Microsoft could have had a competitor to the iPhone, but they didn't go ahead with it. Biggest blunder of all time. People make fun of Xbox. Xbox is a great device, but my God, their phone department at the time they had no idea what they were talking about because everyone wanted a BlackBerry, according to them. Steve Ballmer, that bloody BlackBerry. But anyway, so my theory is that like this PC thing coming out later this year, they want Xbox not just to be tied to the ecosystem, but they want Xbox to be recognized as a PC brand as well. So you're gonna have your console players like me, like Logan, that we prefer to play on console. They're gonna continue to support the console, but they want the PC brand to basically blow up in popularity as well. Like in the UK, every time I see a Game Pass ad on YouTube, it's almost always for PC Game Pass. Bear in mind, PC Game Pass has less subscribers than Ultimate or the base Game Pass. So, like, why are they doing this? And this is a whole part of my theory. And by the way, with me mentioning this, I bet some people will listen to this and then they'll make a point of it like it's their own. It started here. Because it just came to me. Like, it is... To me, it seems blatantly obvious that they want to capture the PC market before SteamOS makes, it is everywhere, right? So, like, this year you're going to have your PC handheld, but will stream, console games as well. But 2027 is apparently now the year for the next generation Xbox. Now, I've been saying for the past year and a half with all these rumors, I'm perfectly fine with a 2026 Xbox. Perfectly fine. Console generations have been 5 to 6 years in the past for most of the time. It's just that with the 360 and the Xbox One generations, like, those were elongated generations. And I'm perfectly fine going back to how it used to. But in retrospect, you have to look at this generation. Almost everyone calls this generation disappointing. And it's not a first-party game thing. Like, the amount of delays that's happened this generation, everything's been delayed because of, what happened in 2020. So, like, the first 2 years of this generation were slow. It was like walking in butter. And now we're having big, consistent releases all the time. 2025 looks absolutely stacked and possibly one of the best years for gaming ever. And, like, next year it might even be even more impressive. But, like, I think 2027, they're not going to have a mid-generation refresh. They're going to let developers have time with the hardware we have now. Like, I think 2027 could end up being the sweet spot, and they may end up being a year ahead of PlayStation anyway, doing a 360. The 360 launch was huge for Microsoft. And by then, there'll be an Elder Scrolls 6 out. So, like, Microsoft could potentially be launching their next-generation console in November 2027 with Elder Scrolls 6. That was quite a mouthful. Logan, what's your thought? Because, like, we've been talking about 2026 for the past year, but I think a lot more people will be happier having an extra year with the current hardware, especially with developers putting out games more consistently now.
Yeah. Like, I'm perfectly fine with either one, 26 or 27. Selfishly, I'd like 26 because I like new hardware. I like, generate new generations and leaps to see where they've, enhanced certain things or tweaked stuff or, innovated to where there's new features or capabilities we never thought possible. Like smart delivery was a game changer, literally. And, backwards compatibility and then upscaling, like, and then cloud now has become a thing. Like, I'm just fascinated to see what the next journey is. And so I'm looking forward to it. If it's 27, so be it. That's cool. I can deal with another year. Like you said, frankly, this generation, this some developers might not like this, but it has felt basically like a 1.5 like generation of like the Xbox One or the Xbox, One X basically, which was like a reboot of the Xbox One generation. Like for the most part, most titles are Xbox One playable and Series X are as playable, and then you can get a boosted version for your Series console compared to your other. There have been very few specifically only Series X, S, or PS5 titles. and yeah, which is fine. I mean, because a lot of people are seeing less of a need to buy one and are just holding onto their console. Kind of like in cars. Like, it used to be, growing up, people would trade out their cars every few years. Now, like in the US, I don't know about in the UK, but in the US, the average car on the road is like over 11 years old. Like, people are keeping their cars for much longer. It's kind of like that with hardware now for consoles. So I'm ready for a new one, but 2027 is perfectly fine. Allow them to max out whatever they can on this current hardware and really, really nail the messaging and the launch. Because if they can launch it and they play their cards right, they can have a 360 like Ninja Strike moment where they take everybody by surprise. They have some killer launch titles and some features, and like if you market the heck out of it with Call of Duty and Elder Scrolls or some other title along with Game Pass and this console, even if all your games are going anywhere everywhere, it people will go, "Oh, Xbox is the place to get this." And they will sell like gangbusters.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like it's going to be down to timing for Microsoft. By the look of it, it looks like what we've been saying for the past year and a half is true. Next generation Xbox, they're going to be launching with the Series X successor and a handheld.
Mhm. Mhm.
The Series S has been an interesting console because it's a small device. It's it's a decent price. Like I think it's like $230 at the minute in the UK.
Mhm.
Like and like even though apparently the S takes up most of the sales, it's interesting that Microsoft might not be doing a cheaper box next generation. So like a handheld, if they hypothetically squeeze an S right now into a handheld or something slightly stronger than an S, it's going to cost a lot still. You know, the funny thing is, in the past, people have told me like Jamie, the series next generation handheld has to cost $250 and have the at least the power of a Series X, and I just burst out laughing. Like,
250 is chump change. That ain't happening.
yeah, it's like I would love a holodeck too, but that ain't bloody happening. Um, and it's just like it's my prediction next generation is that Microsoft will aim for a $500 price. None of the $700, $800 I keep saying. I think it will be a $500 price, and I think the handheld will be at a push $450. It might even be the same price, because you're also paying for the screen. Is it an OLED versus an OLED? What are the controllers like? Are there extra?
The battery life.
Yeah, the battery
Yeah.
life, like the battery, that's going to cost quite a bit. Like squeezing a Series S into a handheld for a novelty, it sounds like they'll be able to do it then, which they probably will be able to. But there's so many more like different components they need in a handheld that just isn't in a Series S, so they can't charge the
Oh,
same
and you
price.
have to worry about. Oh, sorry.
No, no,
I
no, I
was
was
just
done.
gonna say you also have to worry about not cooking your hands on it too.
Yeah, like they have to basically go over like I can't like the new Switch. From what we've seen, it looks super sleek. It's basically what I would have wanted a Switch 2 to look like. And like I can't imagine the engineering involved to get that thing to stay cool while being that thin. With
Hmm.
a decent screen. The screen on the new Switch, that looks really nice. By the way, we'll be seeing that in a few weeks, which I can't wait. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for Microsoft. It's really going to be interesting because if they get a year up and have some killer launch titles, it's going to be an interesting generation. Um, it's funny, like this past few weeks and year plus, like people have been like warring with each other online, like complaining and arguing all the time about which titles are going where and stuff. But like every developer I've spoken to that work for like third party publishers, they don't actually see a downside to what Microsoft's doing at all. So like there's some statistics that we just don't know. But the funny thing is that the gamers I do know in real life that play lots of games, it doesn't actually bother them, or they just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Xbox, the original one, which came out in 2001, like that console is a bit strange because it sold like what 25 million units, something around there. Then you have the Xbox 360, which became the de facto game device that generation. Even though it sold less than the PS3 in the end, it was the device to play games on. It was where everyone was at. It was the water cooler moment of consoles. And they reached, I think, 90 million consoles sold. And then you have the Xbox One, which had a not the best launch, kind of. And the thing is, they sold about 60 to 70 million units, right? What happened this time? Microsoft, there was no controversy when these consoles came out. Anything like that. What exactly happened with Microsoft? They didn't have any first-party launch titles. They didn't have any. So, like, is that the main reason why the Xbox Series aren't selling as well as Xbox One? Or at least we think. Like, I think there's a bunch of different things I can go into at another point, but my point is, like, Microsoft getting their console out early and with actual launch games is going to change the perception, because even though Microsoft has this huge variety of first-party games coming out in the next, several years, basically every year to come. And the thing is, I see this in chat all the time. Like, there's this obvious, like, overtone of people wanting Xbox to fail and get out of the console space. But the truth is, it's like, if they did get out of the console space, people are going to be bored. IGN aren't going to be able to make... Yeah, IGN aren't going to be able to make their clickbait articles every single day. Like, so people are going to get bored, and people are going to be console warring Nintendo versus PlayStation. Is that really going to happen? No. And do you know what the weird part is? People say to me all the time that, PlayStation's first and stuff. Like, no, PlayStation's second. Right? The Nintendo Switch dwarfs what the current consoles are. Dwarfs. And it's a fraction. A Nintendo Switch is basically a super powerful 360 that can put out a 1080p image. I think Microsoft, they had unfortunate luck with the 360 launch, because their consoles. By the way, the 360 launch was the worst thing that's ever happened to Microsoft when it comes to Xbox. But people forgave it because Steve Ballmer basically wrote a check for over $1 billion to fix the problem, right? 50%, before I continue, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick Wenlin for the $4.99. It says, I think Xbox Series aren't selling well because everything is so damn expensive. I mean, that's another good point. Because
you're not wrong.
I always see these memes on Twitter about eggs in the US. I think eggs actually cost a little bit more here. But like the price of everything is like way too much. And like a lot of people can really only afford one device, and people will tend to play where their friends are. And like, look, even though we have crossplay right now, by nature, for decades now, people just buy the console their friends have. And, we maybe see things different next generation, we just don't know. But it's just a weird generation all in all, You have Microsoft having their best first-party output that they've ever had. More consistent, higher quality than ever. And people still refer to Microsoft as having no games. Right? That's a perception thing. That's a perception Microsoft has to grind and try and get rid of, because perception is reality at this point. The consoles costing as much as they are. Like, look at it like this, right? Nick just mentioned the price of everything being so expensive. I know this didn't happen in the US, but it happened everywhere else. Like, the console prices this generation went up. Do you know how weird that sounds? Right? So, like, the PlayStation 5 went up to, I think, $540 in the UK. $550, it was something around there. And people, like, they are raising the price of consoles. Then Microsoft raised the price of their consoles, I think, by £18. £18 isn't a lot, but raising the price in general, if anything, is ridiculous. Then you have I always butcher this thing's name, the Meta Quest 2 Plus thing, the VR headset by Facebook.
100%.
Like they increased its price by $100. I think didn't the price also go up in the US?
Yeah, it was basically they doubled the price, which is absolutely insane for trying to sell a product.
Like it's crazy, and the prices went up even more so in Japan. Like it's just a weird generation. Back in my day, consoles used to go down in price, and that was a fun time, wasn't it? Like
It was a good time.
like
Like a side tangent,
yeah.
but like talking about everything going up in price. Like I remember, going to McDonald's or whatever and getting a nugget meal or whatever, and it being like $4 or not very much, and now it's like 3 times that just for the same bloody thing I ordered. 20 something years ago. It's just crazy how much more expensive everything is.
We have another super chat by Nick Wendland for $4.99. Thank you very much. He says, every Xbox game is released on PC day one, so that isn't helping Xbox to sell either. I mean, they've been doing this for a while, and you have a point. My mic's gone all over the place. I mean, you have a point, but when it comes to like the console base, console gamers for the most part just don't care. I have friends that only game on Xbox. I have friends that only game on PlayStation. Friends that only game on Switch. Friends that only game on PC. And I have friends that game on everything. And all the ones that stick to console don't care about the PC stuff. It's just too much effort for a lot of people. PCs, depending on what setup you want, can be pretty expensive. PlayStation soon, they'll be moving towards day one games. And by the way, I don't think the day one games thing will affect anything much. But like they've had a weird generation. Perception, the fact that they came out 2 years in a row, Microsoft that is, in January with quote unquote bad news. Like it's not a good look. The thing about Microsoft is they need to have consistent good news and hype to basically push this stuff to the side. Otherwise, it's just all negativity. It's perceived negativity. We're talking about the price thing, and I can whine about this now because I've never really had an outlet for it. So before the pandemic started, there's this dive pub, right? There's this dive pub. I'm not even going to call it a dive pub. But it was a rock bar. You could call it a biker bar, whatever. And I've been going to this biker bar on and off since I was 16. And pints for up until 2019, I'm not even kidding, even early 2020, a pint of lager or pint of cider cost about £2.50. You went there for two reasons. You didn't go there for the sticky floor. You didn't go there for the fact that the toilets had no doors. You went there for two reasons. The amazing music, rock and metal music. And you went there for the cheap booze. That's just why you went there, right? When you went to college and you weren't meant to go to the pub, you went to this specific pub, right? So it was always like that for ages. And then 2020 happened, and what did they do? No more sticky floor. The toilets have doors. These kind of play the same music as before, but pints cost $5.50 now. I was livid.
Those doors are expensive, man.
Yeah, the doors are expensive, but like I was livid. The shock on my face when we went back to this pub, like I think it was like a month or two before Christmas. I was shocked. My jaw hit the floor when I was told, "Oh yeah, that's $5.50, $5.50 for a pint." I don't live in London. Things shouldn't be costing that much, but the price of it, my God, my heart just cries, man. This pub was so good. I talked about the music, right? This being a rock and metal pub. They used to have the Resident Evil soundtrack on the jukebox.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I played that thing every single time I went in, right? Excellent soundtrack. If people haven't heard the Resident Evil soundtrack, the Resident Evil movie soundtrack, my God, so good. And that is it's a great film as well. But yeah, the price of everything's gone up. It's so annoying. It's just tiring, you know. But when it comes to like Microsoft, I think, yeah, like when this generation started, no one can get the consoles. There was scalpers going on. There was this guy in the UK. He posted a picture and he had this wall of Xboxes and PlayStations behind him. He just continuously went around to all these different supermarkets and stores buying consoles to sell on eBay for like stupid prices. Like, I think that next time Microsoft and Sony has to do it as well, and I hope Nintendo does it because it's going to happen to them as well. They need a way so you can maybe pre-book in advance a way to get a console. Maybe
the scalp bots are bad.
Yeah, the scalping bots were bad, and like maybe I don't know how you would do it on PlayStation, but maybe have it so you have to have at least 15,000 gamer score to pre-order one console, or just like some equivalent, because like this generation, from like not just Microsoft's like missteps and like the industry, what they're doing. And like we could talk Xbox tax another day, but it's just been a weird generation overall. And if things keep going the way they are now with Microsoft, it all looks pretty good. It's just it's very weird. I still can't believe that we live in a world where the consoles went up in price and people are willing for games to cost more.
And they want to tip studios.
I've seen that. I've seen people talk about that, tipping studios. Like, did they think that the developers that work hard all day on their computers, that they get a cut of the money? No, they don't. Do you think when 2K sells or Take-Two sells $2 billion of GTA stuff in 48 hours, those developers aren't seeing any of that? Unless there's like some contractual thing where they get like some share of the profits, which they won't. It's weird. I love video games. I love covering gaming, but my God, the whole thing is a mess. I'm not gonna lie, right? There's a tiny little part of me, just a tiny little part, that kind of wants the game crash to happen.
See you sitting in your lawn chair on your porch with a nice cold lager, just watching this inferno happen.
Yeah,
and
like don't get wrong,
just smiling.
I love the video game industry, and like over the past few weeks alone, there's been so many new games that interest me. But honestly, I've seen so many more AA games in the past month than I've seen like in the past year when it comes to interest in AAA games. Just a tiny little part of me wants to see what would happen if the crash happens. Because who knows? Maybe the game industry needs it to spawn from the ashes like a phoenix, where we'll actually have originality in games again, and just I don't know. You know what? I just want to go back to the 7th generation where everyone was good. Like games were coming out all the time. They weren't broken. You have Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo basically selling like close to 100 million units. Well, the Wii sold over 100 million. I think it was like 120 million or something. Like it was a better time. But yeah, that's the Xbox next generation talk. And look, we're obviously going to find out more stuff this summer. I will say this though, Xbox they've been rumored to be coming out with a new controller that has haptic feedback, or different kind of haptic feedback than they have now, and a gyro support controller. I think that's cool. I've been talking about gyro for a long time. I think gyro would actually help people that have specific needs. So I'm all for that stuff. And plus, I think gyro would be really cool for like some driving games. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else to say on this topic before we change it out?
Speaking of the controllers, what did you think of the Nacon controller that they showed off at their show?
Which one was that? The one with the weights?
I I don't remember if it had weights, but it had like a LED as well, and like set for modes for like FPS and some other stuff. And it's like one of the first like officially licensed controllers that's like a very different style, but Xbox approved, and it's from Nacon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it depends on the price. Now that third-party wireless controllers can happen, I'm all for like some like cool, interesting takes. But it's when they start putting things on them that you don't need. Like, do we really need a screen on a phone that tells you which mode you're in? Like, why not just have like a switch or something? Uh,
I
eh,
want to bring back Mad Cats.
yeah. Are they still around as a company?
I haven't seen a Mad Catz controller except at a used place in years, so my guess is no, but they were the kings back in the day.
Yeah. By the way, Mad Catz actually launched a console at one point.
They did? I didn't remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It took these like weird papery plastic discs, which basically had like the tiniest amount of code on them, and the games looked like Flash games from 2006. Like it's
Well,
a
that sounds fun.
it's a weird if people get bored at some point, look this up. It's a Mad Catz console, and when you open it up, it kind of looks like a portable DVD player, but without a screen, and you hook it up to a TV, and it uses AV cables. It's a monstrosity. It looks like a toy basically. Um, but yeah, I think at some point we'll have to do a show just talking about obscure consoles that came out.
Oh yes, I would love to do that. Obscure games, consoles, memorabilia. I remember the worm lights when you couldn't, or you when you tried to play your Game Boy in the car, uh, unless you happened to drive under a street light to where you could see, and like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I had a bunch of attachments for my Game Boy Color. I had the worm light. I had the magnifying glass. I think I even had
So,
the speaker attachment.
mhm.
And you used to be able to plug headphones into those things, but like, my God, the sound was awful. Um, but I know a bit of a tangent, but look, can you remember a console that was announced? I think it was announced in 2006 or something. It was called the Phantom console.
Not. It doesn't ring a bell. Was that related to Soldier Boy's initiative that he was gonna do, or is this separate?
Fortunately, not. So
Okay.
so this is why Xbox Live was doing its thing, with the integrated store and stuff. Um, so the Phantom console was actually going to be a streaming device where you'd stream like AAA games to your console, and you would pay to stream these games. And this was like the idea of on live, but before on live. I don't even think
Interesting.
I don't even think they got out of the prototype stage, but there that was another obscure console. And if one of people want to talk about obscure things really quick, I used to be a member of On Live. Yeah, I, I
Did you get a library card and all the stuff, or
no, I had I had basically the base package where you subscribe, and you had to use your laptop and whatever controller you had, but I didn't have a USB controller, so I had to use a keyboard to play games optimized for a controller. um,
oh,
eh,
that sounds tough.
yeah, it was terrible. It's how I played The Witcher 1. Let me tell you, The Witcher 1 was dated when it came out. Uh, I'll praise the sequel all day in the third game, but my God, that first game is just awful. Um, but yeah, I was a member of On Live back in the day. Let me tell you, that was not good. That was a terrible experience. Um, my God, I don't even know why that was a thing. But yeah, anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing once again. Sorry for the weird time stuff. If I remember correctly, the clocks go forward. I think in the UK on the let me see. I think it's the 29th of this month. So basically, until then, if you live in the US or US centric, time zone, it's going to be the same as usual for you. But if you live in the UK or Europe, it's an hour earlier technically. But yeah, again, everyone, chat's been awesome. We'll be back the same time next week. And for a little update on my health thing, I kind of have to mention it. I've had breathing difficulties for the past few months, and it's gotten really bad to the point where I've almost had to go to hospital. Apparently, you need oxygen to survive. Apparently, and it's getting really bad to the point where I may have to go this week. But anyway, that's why I haven't been able to put out certain videos when I've wanted to. So that's why the past video was late, and it's why tomorrow's video, which was originally meant to be out last week, that's why it's not coming out till tomorrow now. Hope you enjoy it. Took a while getting together, but turns out when you record videos, you need a voice and you need oxygen. It's a bit melodramatic, but it is what it is. Anyway, hope you enjoyed tomorrow's video. We're back the same time next week. I'll put the link for Jess's article in the pinned comment down below. The links to our social accounts from Twitter in the description down below as well. Anyway, hope everyone has a great day. We're out. Peace, everyone.